This episode of It's Personal is brought to you by ArcPoint Labs, testing solutions for your family, your workplace, and your life.
Hi there, I'm Toni Reece and welcome to It's Personal. Today my guest is Julie Strickler. She's a realtor and also a certified family recovery specialist. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
All right, this one could be a little tough, I think, but also full of hope. So we're going to start your story at a good place. So tell me today, Julie, what does a great life look like for you right now?
Okay. When you asked me that question before, the first thing that came to my mind was a story that I heard about 3 years ago, and it was a story about Mother Teresa. And she was on a plane, and she was sitting in business class waiting for the rest of the passengers to board. And a gentleman came on board, sat aside of her, and started to brag because he was so excited about working for this big corporation and landing the biggest account in history of this corporation. So he continued on with his success. And when he was all done, Mother Teresa listened to him, but then she said, "What do you do that matters?" And to me, that really resonated because I realized that I need to do stuff that matters. So when you asked me about great, that's what it was.
Is doing work that matters.
That's right.
Living a life that matters.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's do a little bit of distance traveled to get here, okay? And what that journey was like for you. Did you always live in a life that was that known that you wanted to do work that matters, or what happened to get you there?
Yeah. So sometimes I get emotional. That's just because of the story and because of what I've been through.
Yes. And that's okay.
My son, I have 2 children and 2 stepchildren, but my son, just to give you a little bit of a background of my son, Nick, he was a great kid. He was very handsome. He was blessed with athletic abilities, and he, especially football. He was a football star in high school, and going to college was not what he wanted to do. He decided to go into the Marine Corp, and he was always a leader from a kid on up, and so I knew that it was a good choice for him. And in the Marine Corps, he went directly after high school, and he started as a private after he graduated from boot camp. And I have notes just to kind of go through some of the things with him. He went to private first class, and then after that he went to a lance corporal, and then he moved up the ranks to a corporal, all before the age of 21.
My goodness.
Yeah, he did quite well, and he earned a lot of medals and a lot of honors. And he also experienced an injury, and that injury was followed by 3 surgeries. Those surgeries took place on the naval base at the Naval Hospital, and it was about a 2-year period that he was receiving opioids from beginning to end, a total of 2 years straight. Back then, we did not know what opioids were, and neither did he, and nor did we ever really question our doctors either. And so there was a point in Nick's life where he was still active duty, and he went to his superiors and he said, "I have a serious problem and I need help." It was only about a week or 2 later that they made a decision to give him an honorable and medical discharge. So from that, he came home, and he went through a very difficult journey that we as a family went along with him. We supported his desire to recover. We never supported his addiction, and it was a horrible journey to go through.
Can you tell me the difference?
Well, there's a lot regarding boundaries. Boundaries, If somebody that is suffering from the disease of addiction wants help, you help them however you can, not by giving them money, but perhaps by helping them to get to a place for a rehab, or to say, if you're going to use, you can no longer live here. But every step of the way, it's always with love and always encouraging recovery and helping in any way possible for recovery. So at any rate, after that period of time where 3 years of a horrible nightmare, to be honest with you, it was an up and down roller coaster. Nick had gone through a whole lot of things, lots of rehabs, lots of detoxes. We hired an interventionist to try and help him. We got him into sober living homes. He chose to go into sober living homes. He also had totaled a car. He was also incarcerated. He was also 302'd by my daughter in order to try and save his life. It was a very horrible journey. 3 years before Nick died, we were walking, and for some reason, he knew what he was up against, I think, more than what most people did. And he did kind of like a military step, walked in front of me, faced me, stopped me in my tracks, and he said, "Mom, if anything ever happens to me, please promise me that you will educate people on opioids." And I made that promise to him.
At that time, did you know what that meant?
At that time, I did not, as far as education, I didn't really understand the disease. But that day made me realize that I needed to.
Okay.
Yes. And so my husband and my daughter and I, the three of us, worked very hard to get as much education as possible so that we could try and help him through that journey. And now, he's no longer here. He passed in 2017, September 5th, and we've been on this journey of educating people, whether it is the public that is not affected or whether it is family members that don't understand, like we did in the beginning as well. And the most important thing, I think, is to make sure that people understand that it's just like cancer. This disease of addiction is just like cancer. And if somebody has died of cancer, would you be ashamed or embarrassed by them? And that is the way people in the public or families that are affected need to look at this disease once you are educated and understand it. So that is one of the keys. And I continue to, my daughter and my son, the three of us, or my daughter and my husband and I, the three of us continue to work really hard to carry out Nick's mission and his legacy. And 2 weeks ago, I was flown out to by Fox Studios to LA. And I was very, very nervous. I was speaking on a panel with the United States Surgeon General, Dr. Adams, and 2 other head doctors of the country. And the theater of Fox executives, screenwriters, directors were completely full in that theater, and I was so nervous. But I shared Nick's story, and one of the executives stood up during the Q&A session, and he said, "I lost my daughter, Ellie, to a heroin and fentanyl overdose." And he continued with his question. And yesterday he called me and he said, "I want to thank you because I lost Ellie 18 months ago, and it was the first time I publicly shared what had happened to her." And he said, "Now I realize I need to do my share as well." He said, "What can I do?" So we started to brainstorm, and that's going to be an ongoing relationship. I also had feedback from one of the top executives that was the most powerful and educational 2 hours of his life. during that session, and I realized that I am given this opportunity to continue to do what I need to do in order to make this world a better place, especially for everyone that suffers with the disease.
You are doing work that matters, aren't you?
I'm trying.
Really, well, you're not trying, you're doing. Can I go back a little bit?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
How did Nick know that he needed the help? You said he went to his superiors and he said, I need help. How did he know?
He was what you would say a functioning addict. However, we don't use that verbiage anymore. He was functioning as someone suffering with the disease of addiction, and he knew that he was getting to the point where he was incapable of doing it. He was relying more and more on the prescriptions of the opioids that he was given, and he was given a ton of opioids, and he couldn't live without them. Mm-hmm. And that is when he realized that he was in serious position.
Did you know did you know before he came home? Did you have a gut sense that there was something wrong?
That's a great question. I actually did. Just from conversation with him on the phone, and he was always very strong. And he seemed to sound on the phone. You know how a mom has that gut mm-hmm. instinct? I had a feeling something was wrong. I took off. I went down to North Carolina where he was on base, and I spent a week with him. And he was at that time carrying around a backpack with 14 bottles of pills. And then I knew something was seriously wrong.
Yeah, you followed through with your gut, which the reason I asked the question is, one, I am also a mother of mm-hmm. 2 sons, and you just have the gut.
Yeah.
And most of the times, how many times have we, I don't want to make them mad, so I'm not going to pursue this, but you did. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lesson for other mothers who might be watching this as well. Follow
Absolutely.
That gut.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that period of time when he was home prior to his passing must have felt like a tunnel, like a dark tunnel, like
yes.
a rabbit hole almost.
Yes.
That you were in,
mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
If you could give guidance during that time, as you look back at that time,
mm-hmm.
and if there are parents that are watching this now
mm-hmm.
that are saying, okay, Julie, gosh, I think I'm there. What should they look for? What advice can you give them mm-hmm. of what you went through that they can hold on to?
Right. The most important thing is that addiction is a family disease. Okay. And family members are, the way I have described it, when you have a loved one who is suffering with the disease of addiction and they are in active use, it is like you are buckled into a roller coaster going to hell and back. And family members need to get help as well. For 3 years, I went to parents of addicted children meetings, parents and families of addicted children meetings, because I desperately needed that. That is where I got some of the education, a lot of education and a lot of support, and it's so important to be amongst people that understand what you're going through and to get as much education as you can.
So when you were in the throes of it with your family, you were relying on that type of peer-to-peer support.
Yes.
And also they were providing you with guidance and education.
Yes.
And you're doing the same now with this work. Are there days you don't want to?
No, because it matters.
Yeah.
We have touched so many people, and my husband, my daughter, and I have gone to school to become certified family recovery specialists. We are there to help families as much as what we can, to help them get on the same page and maybe to make a difference as well when they're ready.
So that no was a pretty quick no. So that's a gut no.
Yeah.
That's a gut.
Yeah.
Just like you knew, right, as a parent, that's a gut no. And you're going to continue to do this. What do you want us to remember? What's his legacy?
I think the most important thing is we need to, as a whole, as a country, to break down stigma and to understand what these people are really going through so that they are comfortable with admitting what they're dealing with, and for families to be able to say, you know what, my child does have this disease and we all need to work together to help this, because I feel as though the more that people are ashamed and embarrassed, the more people are going to die and suffer. So that is really what we need to do, is just come together and say, you know what, this is a disease, we need to help, let's do our share.
What an amazing, amazing legacy that he has left, and you are working, and you are doing work that matters, and you are very, very brave, and it is an honor to sit with you.
Thank you.
And thank you for doing the work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks.